please feel free to note down any questions you have, raise your hand throughout, put something in the chat. We'll be happy to address those after we kind of finish walking through the presentation. And I just want to give like a little overview of what the home energy rebates are. So this is a national program made possible by the Inflation Reduction Act. And so you'll see it across the country. And so Georgia has both a single family option, and now we're opening the multifamily option. So the program, you might see different information about it depending on what state you're in, but for Georgia's purposes, I'm going to go into it, but there's two different programs, and then you can do it as single family or multifamily. We're going to be focusing on multifamily today. So I am going to present in Teams. We know when you can see that. Can everybody see that? Oh, I see. Getting ready. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay, I see some nods and smiles. Love to see it. Okay, and you can't see the notes, right? I don't know what you can see. Okay,
No,
great.
we can't see the notes.
Nobody needs to see my chaotic notes. Okay, so we're here. It's May 20th. If you didn't know, we're talking about Georgia's home energy rebates and specifically about the multifamily program. We are going to spend some time looking at just like a breakdown of what we're talking about today and what the program is. We're going to look at the process for kind of how to participate and what that looks like. We're going to take a peek at the application because it does have an application like most things. We're going to take a peek at some resources that are available for your reference. And then we're going to do a quick demo of a helpful tool developed by my genius colleague, Emily here. And then we'll pause for some questions and we'll kind of look at those together. And I just want to take a moment. Obviously, we're here. Who are we? And we've been welcomed by DCA, whom I'm sure everybody knows well. Trika, right? Do we need to pause? Okay. But from our end, I just want to hand it over to Anita and give Anita a second to introduce herself. She is here with Georgia's Environmental Finance Authority, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But Anita, do you want to take a minute and introduce yourself?
Yep, I'll just say a very quick hello. I'm Anita Wilson, and I'm the IRA Rebates Project Manager at GEFA, and just excited to get this information out to you all today, and hopefully have a lot of your questions answered, or get us on the right path to get those answered for you. So happy to be here, and I'll kick it over to Emily.
Thanks so much, Anita. Hi, everyone. It's great to see so many folks on the call. I'm Emily. I am with Guidehouse. So Guidehouse is a consulting firm. We have been hired as the implementation partner. We are accompanying GEFA through this journey of administering the home energy rebates. And so if you see a Guidehouse email, probably it's Shire I, but that's what that is. We are an outside organization that's assisting GEFA with the home energy rebates administration. I am the project manager for the engagement and work very closely with Anita and Anita's counterpart, Chris Anderson, who some of you might be familiar with. So we're excited to talk about the home energy rebates today.
And then me, I'm Shy Flores, and you may have gotten emails from me. You probably will if you decide to participate in the program. And I just, work with Em in helping to administer this program. And then we're also joined by our colleague, Sophia, who's here. She's going to take some notes. She's supporting our multifamily work. So thanks, team, for being here. And I'm going to dive in unless there are any questions about that little intro. Okay. So like I said, we're going to look at the program overview. So just kind of a quick snapshot. Like I said, Georgia's home energy rebates are administered by Georgia's Environmental Finance Authority, or GEFA, and they include two programs. So you have home efficiency rebates, and the home electrification and appliance rebates. And these rebates are available, like I said, to single family and multifamily buildings. We are defining multifamily buildings as a single building containing at least two dwelling units that's used for residential purposes. Okay, so if you have any questions along the way about, if any buildings in your portfolio fit the bill, please let us know. You can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand, like I said. And so when we're looking at here and her, what are these? What do they do, right? So her is kind of a whole building situation, whole building energy retrofits. It requires modeling. That is the best way to think about it. You're modeling your whole spot. And then based on the modeling, you will do different upgrades to hit a certain level of savings, minimum 20%. Here is more like a speckled approach, right? You got a heat pump here, you got a stove there. So you can think of it like that. It's more independent upgrades throughout the house, mostly electrical. A lot of times you're switching from gas to electric, right? And so both of these programs offer significant incentives that will decrease your cost of upgrades through rebates. For the purposes of our group here, like I said, multifamily buildings will apply to the rebates through the multifamily program or pathway, right? So this is what we're talking about today. If you have questions about single family and what's offered through that route, you can let us know and we will redirect you to our colleagues who focus on single family a little bit more. And then if you look at the bottom of the screen, we have some key dates for your reference. The first of which is just always currently available. We have the interest form. So that is your first step for getting involved and engaging with us on the topic of the multifamily rebates. So we're gonna bring you back to that multiple times throughout this. And that's currently available. We can kind of link it here. It's available on the website. And that is like the gateway kind of to figuring out your project with us. And then we are launching a limited pilot for the multifamily program on May 30th. So that's what we're kind of announcing today. And then I just want to make sure you all understand, like, why would you want to participate in Here and Her for multifamily buildings? Well, you stand to make a buck. So for her, you can get up to $16,000 per unit, depending again on your energy savings and income eligibility. And then for here, you can get up to $14,000 per unit, again, depending on income eligibility. So it's really helpful. And it's good to do energy efficiency upgrades. You all probably know, you've probably been exposed to it, but it can lower operating costs. It definitely increases your property value. It increases tenant satisfaction, occupant comfort. Really good stuff can come out of that. Any questions on this kind of quick overview of the program? Okay, fabulous. So I just want to go a little bit deeper into what you can do depending on if you have existing construction or new construction, right? That's kind of how we've broken it out for the multifamily program. So existing construction is defined as something that's already constructed and has previously had or currently has occupants. So you can do both programs if you're an existing structure. Both programs are open to you, here and her. And we kind of talked through a little bit of the details, but just to recap, her is whole building. You got to do energy modeling. You can see the eligible measures on the right hand of that box on the left. So, you've got a whole bunch of stuff, heat pump, water heaters. You can do lighting, you can do insulation, and then you've got your rebate levels on the bottom. So depending on energy savings, you can get a different rebate level, right? So 20 to 34%, you're getting 10,000 per dwelling unit or 98% of the project cost. And then if you get that higher savings, that energy savings, 35% or greater, you get a higher rebate level, right? And then it's further broken down by income. So I'm happy to go a little bit deeper into that. Folks tend to kind of want to get to the other part, so I'm going to move us forward. But if you have any questions about the rebate level of her, let me know. And then if we're looking at here, again, similar measures as her, no modeling, up to $14,000 per unit. And if you've got 50% of your residents with incomes less than 80% AMI, same for her, then you get 100% of the project cost. If you've got that same amount, but they're above 80% AMI, then you get 50% of the project cost. So it's basically you're either income qualified under 80% AMI or everything else. Sorry, when it comes to her, let me clarify. For her on the left hand side, you can have buildings that are non-income qualified, right? So kind of market rate and below 80% AMI. Back to the right side of the screen for here, you have to have under a certain amount. Now, for the pilot, we're only doing under 80% AMI. Okay. But for full launch, there will be that extension to under 150% AMI. So I know we went a lot. There's a lot to digest there. Are there any questions on the distinction between her and here when it comes to existing construction projects? Okay. And we'll be open for questions the whole time, and we'll have some resources you can look at too, after we finish up here. So now we're talking about new construction projects. Okay. And so we define new construction projects as a multifamily structure in the process of being built, not yet occupied, not yet placed in service, does not have appliances as of November 13th, 2024. That's kind of when the whole program launched. So that's the date we're using. So this is just a recap, right? We just talked about here. It just means that new construction projects can only do here, right? Because her requires modeling. You can't model on a building that wasn't there, right? So new construction only here. And we can recap, right? You've got a higher rebate amount for less than for 50% of your residents with less than 80% AMI, a lower rebate amount when you have 50% of your residents with incomes below 150% AMI. And that second piece is for full launch. So we're going to talk a little bit more about, what's it mean to launch a pilot. But, and so recapping the measures here again, same as we just discussed, similar items, appliances, essentially, right? Any questions here?
Okay, I'm just gonna jump in too. Just to be like super clear and echo what Shai is saying. So with our two programs, her and here, her is our whole home. That is open to low income buildings. So that's your 80% AMI, right? That's low income buildings where the majority of tenants are low income or residents are low income, and everybody else. Doesn't matter your income, you can participate in the HER program. Again, only offered for existing structure projects. When we talk about new construction, we're only talking about here. That's our appliance upgrades, that's our in unit, for the most part, upgrades, fuel switching. Shai mentioned all of that. The whole point of here is to serve low and moderate income households. So it's only open to low income buildings and moderate income buildings. And that's where you see the 80% and 150% AMI. If your building is occupied by folks that make, more than 50% of folks making above 150% AMI, you cannot participate in here. So just want to use the low income and moderate income language because I think some of you are probably pretty familiar with that. But the goal of here, again, only for new construction projects, is to serve low and moderate income households. So back to you, Shay.
Yeah, Grace, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I did. I'm sorry. AMI, what does that stand for? I'm taking notes and I'm still fairly new to construction. Do you mind letting me know?
Absolutely. So AMI is area median income, and
Oh,
each county has its own area median income. And you can find there's tools online. We can link a tool to you in the chat here so you can see what that level is to make the assessment of if your 50% or more of your tenants fit that income eligibility. Is that helpful?
yes, ma'am. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
great.
And these are
Glad to hear.
annually set HUD income limits. And so we can provide that HUD link if needed. And they reset every year. So the 2025 limits just came out a month ago. So they do get updated and they're based on household size and county. So it's those two things that factor into AMI, or area median income.
Okay. And they all factor to like the projects that, I am a project manager for certain projects that are developing. So all of that falls into place, right? I guess.
I don't know that I understand your question. Can you say that again?
Okay, I guess like I have one project that's almost completed. So
Mhm.
AMI would fall into that
So the
because
way
they're a DCA project, but then it's a tax credit, project. So
Totally.
it's not
Yeah.
GEFA.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the way
If I
AMI
may,
yeah, go
sorry
ahead.
to jump in. Yeah. So Grace, I would love to, we can get into that more. In fact, after this call, Grace, I can like give you a whole lesson on that part.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's okay. And I'm only jumping in because Grace has been with us. She's one of our newer hires. And I think the rest of us kind of have this down. So I want to be mindful of y'all's time giving it to us. So we'll talk about this after. Like, good questions, Grace, and we'll talk about it a little more after.
Sorry. Okay.
No
Thank
apologies
you.
necessary. But thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking a question. You're good.
No, super helpful, Grace. No worries. Thank you, Kim. Okay, so I'm gonna go onto a slide that kind of recaps everything we just talked about, which I hope is helpful. So we're looking at these two programs, right? Here and Her, multifamily buildings. We're talking about rebates and who can get them, right? So for new construction, here only. For existing construction, which includes acquisitions or rehabs, you can get here or Her. Okay, but again, new, no Her. Both programs can be led by a contractor, and in fact, Her must be led by a contractor. There's no doing it yourself. There is a do it yourself component to Here, but it's only for kitchen appliances. So it's like an oven essentially, and it is not launching for the pilot. That will be likely in the fall that option becomes available. So just keep that in mind that in general, this is a contractor led program, meaning you need a contractor. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. And then modeling is required for Her, right? As we discussed. And here is 100% income restricted. There is no market rate, or as we call non-income qualifying option, when it comes to here. It is under 150% AMI or you're not eligible. And then I'll talk more about this in a moment, but for the purposes of the pilot, it is under 80% AMI. Yes, Thompson?
Is that evaluated, the income levels, is that evaluated on a per unit or per project basis? Because we have some developments that are 90% affordable but have 10% unrestricted.
You want to jump in here?
Yeah, so it's typically evaluated on a per unit basis.
Okay.
That's how our single family works. But if you have a property where 90% of the units are income restricted, that meets the definition. And we'll go into a little bit more. But specifically for LIHTC properties or projects, it's not obviously if you don't have tenants if the units are unoccupied, you're not going to have AMI for those
Sure.
tenants. So income restricted meets the same definition. So if you can show that your property is 90% income restricted, doesn't matter what that remaining 10%, if they're not income capped at all, that doesn't matter. You've sort of met the definition of a low income building. You can participate in the program. You can get the higher rebate levels. If you're talking about an occupied building, right? There's residents living in maybe not all of the units, but most of the units, you're going to show income based on a per unit basis. So per unit, what is the household income for that unit? Can you demonstrate that 50% of the units in the building, or occupied units, I should say, are occupied by low income households? Does that make sense? It's
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
helpful.
both to answer your
Okay.
question. Okay.
Yep, thank you.
It's kind of both. Yeah, thanks, Em. Okay, and then looking at the bottom of the screen here, just noting we have some specific requirements for when you're doing Her. Again, this is that modeling one, right? This is that whole building option. For large multifamily buildings, you are kind of limited in the type of upgrades you can do. So we'll discuss that with you if that ultimately is the path you want to go. And you are a large multifamily building, which we define as 6 units or more, then we can discuss what those upgrades might include, but they must be central upgrades serving the whole building versus small multifamily buildings with Her, about 2 to 5 units. They can do all the measures that we have available. So just keeping aware of that and that kind of distinction there. And then again, the modeling, just for your knowledge, the modeling process for small, again, 2 to 5 units, is like our single family pathway, which uses Snug Pro. If you've ever heard of that, we do have a training available. And then the large multifamily buildings, or 6 units or more, they will be asked to use a little bit of a higher level modeling version called QBAT, or the Quick Building Assessment Tool. Again, we'll have a training, but I do want to flag here, this is an example of where if you have a building, you're ready to roll and you want to upgrade, but you have like a different version that you use of modeling software, you've used it many times, you can bring that option to us and we can talk about it as a team and figure out if that makes sense going forward for you. So, we can have sort of a customized approach with several of these things, just given the nature of multifamily buildings. Yes, Em.
Sorry, I told you I'd be quiet, but I'm not capable of being quiet. So here I am. Just to flag that if you're seeking to use something other than QBAT, it does have to be an ASHRAE Level 2 standard modeling tool.
Thank
So
you.
that's our one requirement is if you have a modeling software that you're used to using, that you always use, it just has to be ASHRAE Level 2. If it is, that's fine. We can make an exception for that. Otherwise, we will encourage everybody to use QBAT. And like Shai said, we have a training.
Thanks, Em. And no, you don't need to be quiet. No one needs to be quiet. Okay. So next slide. So we're now going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to go into the detail of what makes a building eligible for these programs. Okay. So if you're looking on the right-hand side of the screen, this lays out our three options. Okay. So the multifamily program has three methods of income verification. So, for the purposes of the pilot of this launch we're doing now, we're going to just focus really on method one, especially for this group, method one. But just for your awareness, I'll walk through all three methods, okay? So, method one is whole building categorical eligibility. I'm going to go into that in detail on the right side of the screen in one moment. And the second method is per unit income verification. And Jeremy, I'm sorry, I see your comment. You're not able to see the screen. Is that what you've said? Sorry, I'm not able to see all of the chat items right now. Are others able to see the presentation? Okay, I see nods.
I can see it fine.
Okay, well,
Jeremy, we can send it after. We can send a link for you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Jeremy, you can definitely try exiting the meeting and coming back in. And then this is being recorded. So you'll receive the recording. And then happy to send out the PowerPoint. So I'm sorry about that. So left-hand side of the screen. So first option, whole building categorical eligibility. We'll go into it in a second. Second option is basically each unit has to get verified to make the whole building income eligible. Okay, so that might look like tax information that you submit for 50% of your units, or it might look like their categorical eligibility. Do they participate in programs like SNAP, Medicare, Social Security, right? So that is something we will talk about in the future. It is launching likely in the fall. So you don't need to think about it right now, but that is an option as part of this program. And then lastly, method three is non-income qualifying buildings, also known as market rate. So just meaning no income cap associated with the building. They are eligible for, if we all remember, just the HER program. And it is a lower rebate level that you'll accept, but that is something you can opt into even if you are eligible in terms of income. You can opt out of the income qualification and pick method three. Okay, so method one on the right-hand side of the screen, we go into a little bit more detail. This is categorical eligibility at the whole building level, right? So it just means your whole building is participating in one of four of these programs, and that makes it eligible for these rebates, for the higher end, actually, of these rebates. So it is specific to 50% of your building must be below 80% AMI. That is the tagline to remember. 50% of your building below 80% AMI. And so if you're looking at the different programs that are available in this, the first one is public housing, right? The second is project-based assistance. So again, 50% of your building below 80% AMI. And then lastly, second to last, tenant-based assistance. 50% of your building under 80% AMI, right? We're getting it. And then the last option is LIHTC, right? So a LIHTC recipient. So if your building falls under these, you are categorically eligible at the building level. And of course, for this audience, LIHTC is the most relevant. So during the application process, you will need to prove your participation or designation as one of these 4 programs. You will need to prove that. We have kind of a collection of options of how you can prove that. We're also willing to work with buildings for them to say, well, I have this. Can I submit this? Right? We can work together on that. And we'd like to flag that in that same section of the application, when you are showing, hey, I am eligible and here's how, here's my documentation to prove that, you also will be asked to provide your personal identification card, whoever is doing the application. So your ID, right? And then you will also need to provide the building's ownership like status, right? So it could be like a deed, a mortgage, not relevant for all of these groups, so like a property tax statement. And then we also have some other options that fall into that bucket for multifamily programs. So again, you can tell us, well, here's what I have that has the ownership listed on it. Can I submit that? And we'll talk about it together and see what makes the most sense. I want to turn it over to Tarika to just give a little bit more detail for the LIHTC buildings we have in the audience of what you might see as submitting for proving whole building categorical eligibility. Can you take it away, Tarika?
Yeah, thanks, Shai. So we did talk about this yesterday in preparation, and I think my team for compliance, you might be familiar, some of us are on the call in the Housing Finance Development Division. And we agreed that the 8609, I believe, would satisfy this, the proof for authorization. So is that what it is, Cheyenne, the proof for authorization? Okay, just want to make sure I'm saying that right.
Yep.
Of course, parts 1 and 2 completed, so make sure that both parts are completed. And we said that because obviously the signature line with the signed by the owner, your tax ID is there, and that shows that you're obviously receiving your credits. So that would satisfy the authorization. And then I can speak to the rent roll, but you haven't gotten there yet, so I can say that you can share that as
That's
well.
okay. Take it away. Go for it.
Yeah, and then just to further, Cheyenne will go into also proving your income, the income levels per unit. And so we also thought the rent roll would be a good way to satisfy that. So if you show your rent roll, that already comes out in a spreadsheet. She'll detail the additional information that you have to share with that spreadsheet, within that spreadsheet, but the rent roll would satisfy proving the income levels as well. So your 8609 for the authorization and your rent roll are documents that are readily available to you, and those would already satisfy those necessary documents. So just wanted to share that for the LIHTC properties.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Tarika. Yeah. So, you're both showing, hey, I participate in one of these 4 programs, and you need to show us 50% of my tenants are indeed under 80% AMI. That's these 2 documents that Tarika is referring to, right? So your 8609 would prove I participate as a LIHTC recipient, and your rent roll, or you could do a pro forma, would show, okay, here's who's in the mix in my building, and that is why I'm eligible. Okay, so are there any questions on that? I know this part is kind of like the sticky piece, and we've had a lot of questions come in, so happy to receive questions later or now. I cannot see the chat, so if someone can easily see the chat and tell me if there's any questions, but please feel free to chime in if there's any questions on this.
Sorry, me again, not a question, though I am monitoring the chat and I don't see any. For those of you that are, that are multifamily building owners or maybe your property managers, the point of the authorization, just to put a finer point on that so that it's clear, who you should kind of pull in and be gathering documents from, we need to, as a program, we need to collect information that shows that you're authorized to make decisions on behalf of the property. You're authorized to upgrade parts of the property. So maybe you're a property manager, but you work closely with the building owner. It is important that the correct folks are involved in the application process, but more so that you are able to provide documentation that demonstrate your ability to make decisions and act on behalf of the property, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the thought behind it. That might change in your mind what document you provide, but like Shai said, we can work with you.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem like there's any questions, but again, we'll have a moment at the end to pause with some questions if you want to think it through, mull it over. And otherwise, I'm going to move us on. So now we're going to look a little bit at the process of this program and applying to it? What does that look like? So the first step in the process with the Georgia's Home Energy Rebates multifamily program is to complete the interest form, right? I said I was going to lead you all back to that 1,000,001 times, and here we are. So the first thing to do is complete the interest form. This is available online. We will stick it in the chat here. But essentially, it asks just high level questions about your building, who you are, and what you're planning to do with the building in terms of the rebates. A very important piece here is that in order to get from the interest form to the next step, you must have a program approved contractor, program enrolled contractor. So the program has specific contractors that are kind of like eligible to complete the work that you say you want to get done. So you can either have your contractor that you currently work with get enrolled, and we can provide the link for that here in this call. So that is an option to you. That's available online. Become a contractor, right? And that person that you want to do the work that you already maybe have on your payroll, you already work with, or maybe is you, maybe you're a contractor and a building owner, then you can just complete that and you can get enrolled. If you don't have a contractor, but you still want to participate, you can look at our list of current enrolled contractors, and we'll have sort of a call out we're working on now, making a call out of the programs that, the contractors that work with multifamily buildings, because that you'll have to choose that particular distinction among that list. So if that's clear, from there, once you have your contractor, you'll move on and we'll chit chat on the phone. And I'll ask you some high level questions, right? First of all, it might be, do you have a program enroll contractor, right? And we might discuss that at that point. But mostly we'll talk about a little bit more detail about what exactly are you planning to do and a little bit more detail about your building. And then you'll hear more detail about the program requirements, some more of the nitty gritty, so that you're prepared, you're aware, and you can make that decision in the end. Yes, I want to continue, or maybe this program isn't for me. Once you finish that conversation, I will ask for a sort of like a spreadsheet, which we have a template for, and you'll write down that more detail based on units, right? So you'll say like unit A is doing X, and I am a public housing builder, I am a LIHTC recipient, right? So you're just going to document a little bit more detail of what you're planning to do. So once you get that in, if you're a large multifamily building, which again, this is appropriate for this group, you will need to undergo an in-person, the building will need to undergo an in-person pre-inspection. That will be done by a program partner of ours. And basically, they're just checking that the building fits the characteristics that you've outlined and the rebate type identified fits the building, right? That it makes sense and it will work for the rebate. Then once the inspection is, we get the clean bill, so to speak, of the inspection, I will invite you to complete the application. The application is housed in a software called Neighborly, and it is sort of a big application, but it's split out into pieces, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a moment. But essentially, you as sort of the building representative will complete the income information, right? You'll upload your proof that we just talked about, right? You'll upload who you are. Here's my ID. Here's the deed. Here's who owns this building, right? Well, we can plan together as a team on what makes sense of what you're uploading, like we said. And then you'll coordinate with your contractor that you're working with, who will do the scope of work sections, right? The sections where they're saying, here's the work I'm going to do. Then you get to project completion, right? So the work is getting done after everything's approved. Your contractor's hard at work. They come back into the application. They say, here's what I did. Here's my photo proof. They do have to upload that. And then they're done. And once they finish inspection and all the measures look good, all the installations look good, you get a notice of completion and you're done. Now, I want to be really clear about two very important things here. The first is this process is per building. So you might have a bunch of buildings in your portfolio. Each building needs its own application. Now, the pre-screen and the interest form we can do kind of based on your portfolio, if that makes sense with your plan. But when it comes to getting inspected and doing the application, that is per building. You finish all the stuff you said you're going to do in your building, you get paid for that building's work. Does that make sense, or are there any questions about that? So I know that functions a little bit differently than some other multifamily facing programs. Okay. The other piece that's important is that this entire process is with our team. It is not with DCA. So I know DCA is expert on many things, but they're not the person to go to for questions with this process. It is us. We will answer. And so hopefully we all hear that, because DCA has many other programs that they're responsible for implementing. And so this process, this whole program, come to us, come to this team. We're going to provide an email address. The interest form goes right to us. If you have pre-inspection questions, again, it's for us. And then lastly, the inspection is not related to any DCA related inspections you have. It's not the same thing, and it can't be combined. So it's separate, if that makes sense. So any questions before I move on? Okay. So we're looking at the application. So like I said, the application is inside something called Neighborly Software. We've been using it for a while. We've been using it for the single family program, which has been launched since November. So well, a lot of times we get the question, who can apply? So really, for the purposes of this group, it's really anyone that's representing a multifamily building. So this could be like a building owner, a property manager, a developer, a contractor, right? You can initiate the application. It just has to be somebody that is like authorized to complete the application, which is part of what Em was talking about. They need to upload the fact that, hey, I'm authorized because the building owner said I can, and it's like you have to sign that form. Your building owner has to sign that form. Okay. So that's your authorization that you have to upload, depending on who you are when you're submitting and initiating that application. And then you'll also be responsible for putting in that income information, right? And proof of ownership. So then the contractor is responsible for documenting and installing the upgrades, right? So they're going to say, here's what we're planning to do. And there's all kinds of fields in there that are appropriate for this in the application. Then they're going to say, okay, we're approved for it. Okay, now I did it, and here's what I did, right? So documenting and installing. What is the process? We talked about it a little bit, but right, it's like 3 parts. The first part is that building and income info. The second part is, what are you gonna do? What's your plan? The last part is, what did you do? What are your completed upgrades? In terms of payment, building representatives, right? So anyone within that list, building owner, property manager, developer, contractor, could be landlord, right? They can be paid. They can elect to be paid. Separate process, and we'll talk through it together if that is your path. And then contractors can also be paid. They can be designated as the payee in the system. And I want to give a little detail that the timing around payment, like I kind of said, it is per building. So when you finish everything you said you were going to do in that building, all your upgrades, your project plan, that is when you get paid. Everything has been installed and inspected. That is when you get paid, right? And the timing between the different steps in the process, it can vary. It will vary based on your availability to get all of your information in. And on our end, we typically turn around projects rather quickly. So it mostly depends on the applicant and how quickly they're able to get in all of their information. We can work with you a little more detailed if you have questions on that. Any additional thoughts on here, questions, team? Okay. So now we're going to go into how do you apply? What does this look like? What are my next steps, right? So you have your interest form, again, interest form. So first step, right? That is your first step of engagement. The other piece that you can look to right now is the existing website for the program. That is energyrebates.georgia.gov. And that has information about the single family pathway. Our multifamily webpage is currently under construction. We are anticipating it to be launched by the May 30th launch date that we talked about, right? So just be aware of that. And then May 30th, keep your eyes peeled for the launch of our pilot, right? As we talked about, the whole building categorical eligibility buildings. LIHTC for this one, it makes sense, or market rate. So that is on May 30th, the end of this month, in about 10 days. So keep your eye out for that. I just want to speak to, if there's anyone in the group that has already completed the interest form, you will hear from us after the launch, after May 30th. You'll hear from us and you'll get some next steps. And for everyone's awareness as well, we'll have quite a queue of buildings in line for the application, and applications will be accepted on a rolling basis. But you will get some outreach to know kind of what you can plan for, what you can expect. Any questions here? Okay. I'm gonna just walk us through some resources that we have, sort of ahead of the game. There's more in our packet, but just for now, we just wanted to highlight some cool resources. So one of them is our eligibility packet. So this is really for everyone. It's for all our multifamily stakeholders to refer to. And it basically is like a comprehensive resource, or a manual, so to speak. It gives information on what are the terms we're using with this program, who is eligible, what's the breakdown between new construction and existing, what are the measures that I can do, and then program specific requirements like modeling and assessments, and what do you have to do with those. So it's a helpful kind of manual and breakdown of what you've got to do. And we provide that once you have your pre-screen. You'll walk away with a bunch of resources to prepare you for your next steps. And then we also have this amazing tool, our multifamily estimated rebate calculator, which you can use for both here and her to show you essentially an estimate. Again, estimate of the rebate you can expect from your program, or sorry, from your project, and the different things you're going to upgrade in your building. Okay. So we are going to do a demo of the estimated rebate calculator, and for that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague. Em, are you ready? Do you need me to stall?
I'm good.
Okay, cool. So I just have like a placeholder here in this, but I'm gonna let you take over share screen. And Em is gonna walk us through a demo of kind of a mock project and what one would expect to see with that.
Thanks, Shai. Okay. So as mentioned, we have this rebate calculator. This is just an Excel file. Shai's heard me make this joke many times, but this really tested my Excel knowledge. And so please provide feedback if there are any issues. I wouldn't be shocked. So do provide that feedback. When you open the document, you'll see that there's a README tab. The document is locked down so that you can only edit tan cells, except for this tan cell, which tells you that you can only edit tan cells. You're going to see that the whole document is geared towards this new construction and existing construction, or existing structure sort of framework. We're only going to do an existing structure project today just to demonstrate, because I do want to make sure we leave time for questions, and we only have just over 10 minutes left. But you can click through, there's the new construction tab and then the existing structure tab. I'm going to do this demo so that it aligns with the slide that's in the slide deck. And so when we send that out, you'll be able to see the screenshot of the rebate calculator, and sort of, I'm going to bring you through that today, and we're going to arrive at the rebate amount that you'll see on that slide that has the screenshot. So like I said, the calculator is meant to be, very formula driven. So you only have to edit tan cells. We're going to walk through. What we're going to do today is we're just going to do a here project for an existing structure. So you have an existing structure project, maybe you're rehabbing a building that you have in your portfolio, and you want to add in some new appliances. So you're doing the HER program. Or excuse me, the HERE program, the home electrification and appliance rebates. We've tried to color code everything, so this blue color will always be here for the most part, and green will always be HERE. So you come into the calculator and you go step 1, right? The steps are down the left-hand side here. Existing structure, total number of units in your building. So we've picked some numbers at random today, but we're going to work with a 300 unit building. As soon as you type in that 300 number, you're going to see, and let me zoom in just, you're going to see that your potential maximum building-wide rebate is 4.2 million. Now, how did we arrive at that number already, right? You haven't given any information about your project yet. Well, that's not to say that you're going to get 4.2 million, But it is to say that if you were to do upgrades in every unit in your building, you could receive up to 4.2 million. So it's assuming the maximum rebate, because again, if you're a low income building, you could receive the maximum rebate level for every single unit in your building, occupied or not. I do want to say that. So that's the 300 units. Your potential amount sort of in the back of your mind is 4.2 million. Of course, you have to be doing upgrades to justify a rebate amount. So it's an up to amount. So that's all you need to do for step one. Just give us your unit number. And again, this is all an estimate, as Shai said. Now you're going to move down into step two. This is where you'll be able to see the different measures available to you. So you have upgrade type here. We have appliances and building materials. Those are the two types of upgrades that we have available. And then within those upgrade types, a number of measures. There's different sort of tool tips here as you go. So the only cells, again, you need to focus on are the TAN. You're going to start with column H, estimated cost of individual eligible measure. So you might want to put in a heat pump water heater. So you know that you want to put in 150, sorry, we're actually going to start, make some issues here. Sorry, Excel is really funky for me sometimes. Okay, there we go. You're going to put in maybe 150 of those heat pump water heaters for your 300 unit building. You know that each of those heat pumps cost $1,200. Again, these are fake numbers. So if this is way off, if you're like, I know that's not what a heat pump costs, we know that, but this is just for fun, just for the demo. So you're putting 150 heat pumps in. That's a lot of heat pumps. $1,200 a heat pump. Great. You know then the total cost of installation, if you assume you're putting in those 150 at this cost, your total cost of installation is going to be $180,000. Your maximum rebate amount for the heat pumps is actually higher. It's 262 because your cost of the estimated cost is less than the rebate cap, right? And so we're always going to assume we're not going to bring you up to the cap unless we have to. If the cost was 1,800, right, it's going to cap you out and you're going to have some remaining out-of-pocket expenses. But given that you're seeing $1,200 a heat pump, great. Your maximum rebate, you're not quite hitting that cap because your installation cost is less. So your anticipated rebate amount is that 180. Your total cost of installation is going to be covered by this rebate. So that's great, 0 out-of-pocket expenses. So let's go down, we'll add a few other items, and then we'll close out here. But this just gives you a sense of what you can expect with this calculator. You want to put in some heat pumps for space heating and cooling. You know they cost $2,000. You want to put one in every unit. Oops. 300 units, great, right? Again, less than the cap, and so your cost of installation is going to be covered by the rebate. $600 oven, love it. I hope an oven is 600 because I need a new oven myself. So you go through, right? 180,000 covered by the rebate amount. Let's go down here and let's put in some building materials because it's a little more complicated. The DOE is allowing for $1,600 total for all of these types of building materials. So if you do a little bit of wall insulation, a little bit of duct insulation, you are going to hit that 1,600. It's not 1,600 for each of these individual measures. And this tooltip will tell you that. Please note the program allows for a combined total of 1,600 per unit for any insulation, air sealing, or ventilation. So whatever combo you're doing, it's 1,600 for the unit. Let's say actually 1,600 is the amount that you're going to use, and you're going to put insulation materials in 300 units. Again, 480K. I just want to really quickly show you that if you were to go, let's do one up here. Say your oven was actually, an oven is going to be $900 for your 300 units. You're going to have some out-of-pocket expenses. It's going to cap your rebate amount at that, the 840 times 300, that's your rebate cap. Again, for the example, we're under the cap, but I just wanted to show you that it will calculate your out-of-pocket expenses. So that's all you need to do for this. It will show you that your rebate total is going to be $1.4 million. If you're making all of these upgrades, given these estimated costs, you can expect, again, an estimate. Shai and I will work with you, or mostly Shai will work with you on identifying your SOW and all of the things that are part of your project. But this gives you a good sense. So as you're sort of thinking, okay, which of my buildings might be a good fit, you can really use this as a tool. And again, it's the same thing for new construction, which is only for here. Existing structure, what we're not doing today is we're not doing a HER project. HER project is the same thing, just to really quickly show you, you would add your number of units, so you might add 100 units. And the only distinction here is you're going to select the anticipated energy savings. So do you think you're going to hit that 20 to 34% energy savings, or do you think you're going to be able to hit higher energy savings? Depending on what you hit, your rebate cap will be different. So if I hit 35% or greater, right, I'm graying this out. I'm not going option one. I'm able to hit that $16,000 for the higher energy savings. So just wanted to show everyone that really quick. That's our rebate calculator. With that, we're going to leave 5 minutes for questions. Sorry that this took longer than I thought, but I'll stop sharing my screen and yeah, back to you, Shai, to facilitate the Q&A.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, we can open up for questions. I see we have a hand raised. I'll turn it over in a moment. One very important thing that we had talked about as a team that we wanted to make sure folks were aware of is that when you are, for the purposes of this group, it's very relevant, but when you are upgrading a building that has low income tenants, you will need to sign a low income tenant protection form that we have available. And it basically just says that you may not raise the rent because of the energy upgrades, right? So the rent raise, if there's situations where you need to adjust your rent based on other factors that are already legally allowed, that is your business, but you may not adjust the rent based on the energy upgrades. So I just want to make sure everybody knows they'll have to sign that, and then it will have to be posted for your tenants or included in like a recertification packet or something. In some way, it needs to be given to all your tenants so that they can see that. And this is a requirement of the program. So I just really wanted to make sure everyone is aware of that, as it is an important component. And with that, I'll turn it over for questions. Our colleague Sophia is going to be taking notes. So we'll be recording these and we'll send them out after, along with probably the recording and the slide deck. So Samoy, over to you.
I just had a question about accessing the estimate chart. Are we going to be given to that, or is that on your website, or will it be provided later?
Yes. So
All of the
both.
above.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead.
it will be posted on the website when the website is live. So after that, May 30th, likely the first week of June, if not before, the website will be live and it will be posted in a resources section. And then also when you finish your pre-screen, that second stage of the process with our team, we will provide you with a whole suite of resources, including the eligibility packet and the multifamily rebate estimated calculator.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Gary?
All right, so just to reiterate what you were saying earlier, so DCA really doesn't have any play in this, it's besides underwriting. It just sounds like an underwriting nightmare at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, Tarika, I don't know if you want to say anything, but yeah, so it is a program through Georgia's Environmental Finance Authority. DCA is our partner in helping us get the word out and helping give us some insight on the design of the program. But for all purposes, no, it is not a DCA program. And Tarika or Aisha, I don't know if you want to weigh in.
No, yeah, Gary's actually from DCA as well. So he's looking at his current workload, and no, Gary. So we will just be playing in the background.
Yeah,
And
well,
yeah,
my thing was just like from underwriting, from when developers come in and they tell you, well, we're gonna get this rebate, but we don't know if it's gonna come at the end of the project because we haven't got it yet. So they're gonna be trying to underwrite that in at the beginning of the project, and we don't know if we really want to, let them go with, something that we can't really, it's not really tangible yet. So that's gonna be a real issue with this program, trying to roll it out within DCA.
Yeah, but I
thanks,
could
Gary.
jump. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. No,
I'm
go
sorry, I
ahead.
was just going to jump in. Yes, that's absolutely right, Gary, and certainly a valid concern and something that we have contemplated, and we've talked to, your colleague Laura Ann about at length at this point. One thing to be aware of that it is not available for the pilot. I want to be very clear about that. But the Department of Energy has allowed states to propose partial payment sort of plans for multifamily specific properties. And the purpose of that is understanding that for, long-term construction projects, that developers simply will not be able to carry the costs of, a year, 2-year, maybe 3-year project. And so the goal is to be able to provide partial payments. When we figure that out, we will be able to offer a letter of commitment that more clearly spells out sort of what can be expected from that funding, the funding schedule, and all of that. I recognize that doesn't totally answer the question, or rather the concern around the complexity of underwriting a rebate. And I know DCA typically does not underwrite rebates into their LIHTC capital stack. So this is something we're still sort of figuring out. There has not been a ton of guidance from DOE. So I hear your concern, and our hope is that we can figure this out, for LIHTC properties. Again, we're very much willing to work with those properties to understand what you need to have this be a viable option to include in your capital stack, or substitute, another source of permanent debt down the line. Maybe it's not at the underwriting stage, but it comes in later as a permanent source of debt later on, sort of after underwriting. So again, I'm not an expert in DCA's underwriting process, but I'm kind of trying to, I think I'm saying everything correctly in what Laura Ann has conveyed to me. But again, we'll work with the DCA team to figure this out moving forward.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Great point. Heard. Samoy, I saw your hand was up. Did you want to ask another question?
I was just if developers are reaching out about this, do you guys have like just an inbox? Like, what is the best way to contact you guys? Because I know from the construction aspect, we may get a lot of people reaching out to us about it. So just to have someone as a go-to for you guys.
Yes. So I'll put the email address in the chat. But essentially they can email us and we will
Okay,
respond.
thank you.
Yeah, and then anyone that is interested in actually doing the rebate, they should fill out the interest form. Interest form. So I'll make sure to put the link to the interest form, our email, and the link to the website in the chat, so you have that at your disposal. And then, like I said, we'll have kind of an after action email going out.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
we might all lose access to the chat when the meeting ends. I think I could be wrong. So we'll definitely include those in the email.
Any other questions before we wrap up? We're at 3:01. Thanks to everyone for their time.
I just wanted to say to Emily or Cheyenne, whoever grabs the stuff from the chat, I also added the income limits link from HUD. You can toss that in the chat as well. I think that's a good resource for folks.
Thank you so much, Trika.
You're welcome.
Great. Thanks so much. Add that in right now. All right. Anything else from anybody? If not, we'll wrap up. Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for your time. Really appreciate it. And, this is recorded, so it's going to go out. And for anyone listening in the future, hello. Again, please fill out the interest form if you are interested. And we'll have resources available for you to get a little bit more information. You can contact us via the email. We'll send all of this via the email address. We'll send all of this in an email after right now. So you have those resources. And if you have thoughts or questions, concerns, that's valid as well. Please let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap us up and thank my colleagues and DCA and everyone for joining our multifamily program walkthrough.
Thank you.
Great.
Have a good
Take
day.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.